In 1943, a 33-year-old Polish nurse walked into the Warsaw Ghetto carrying a toolbox, but inside wasn't tools. It was a baby. And this woman was about to pull off one of the most incredible rescue operations in human history, yet 99% of people have never heard her name. Her name was Irena Sendler. And before we dive into her incredible story, let me ask you something. How many children do you think one person could save during the Holocaust? 10? 50? Try 2,500. Irena wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a spy. She was a social worker and nurse in Warsaw, Poland. But when the Nazis forced 400,000 Jewish people into a walled ghetto in 1940, Irena saw something that changed her life forever. Children were dying, not from bullets or gas chambers, from starvation and disease. Every day, she watched kids collapse on the streets, and Irena made a decision that would define the rest of her life. I will get them out. Now, getting into the Warsaw Ghetto wasn't easy. The Nazis had it surrounded with 10-foot walls and armed guards. But Irena had one advantage. She worked for the Warsaw Health Department. She convinced her supervisors to let her inspect the ghetto for typhus outbreaks. So she got a permit, a legitimate reason to enter hell on earth. But once inside, Irena wasn't just checking for disease. She was identifying children who could be saved. Here's where it gets incredible. Irena didn't work alone. She assembled a network of 20 people, teachers, nurses, social workers. They called themselves Zagota. And together, they developed the most creative escape methods you've ever heard. Method number 1, the toolbox. Irena would enter the ghetto with a large toolbox. She'd leave with the same toolbox, except now it had air holes poked in it and a sedated baby inside. Method number 2, coffins. Irena convinced a friend who worked at a cemetery to help. They would carry in empty coffins for burial and carry out coffins with living children hidden inside. Method number 3, the sewer system. Warsaw had a network of sewers that connected the ghetto to the outside world. Irena would guide children through these tunnels, crawling through waste and rats for hours to reach freedom. But here's the part that breaks my heart. Before each rescue, Irena had to convince Jewish parents to give up their children. Imagine being a mother and having to choose: keep your child with you in a death trap, or send them away forever with a stranger. Most parents said yes, because they knew what Irena knew. This might be their child's only chance. Once outside the ghetto, Irena didn't just dump these kids anywhere. She had a whole system. She placed them with Polish families, in orphanages, in convents. She gave them new names, new identities, new lives. But here's what made Irena extraordinary. She kept records. On tiny pieces of paper, she wrote down every child's real name, their new name, and where they were placed. She buried these lists in glass jars under an apple tree in her friend's backyard. Why? Because she promised these parents that after the war, she would reunite them with their children. She was going to remember every single one. For 3 years, Irena saved 2,500 children. But in October 1943, someone betrayed her. The Gestapo came to her apartment at 2 a.m. They tortured her, broke her legs and arms, demanded the names of her accomplices and the locations of the children. And Irena's response? Nothing. She gave them nothing. She was sentenced to death. But here's another miracle. Her fellow resistance fighters bribed a German guard. On the day of her execution, they helped her escape. Irena spent the rest of the war in hiding, but she never stopped her work. After the war, Irena dug up those glass jars. She tried to reunite the children with their families. But here's the heartbreaking reality. Most of the parents didn't survive the Holocaust. These children were orphans. Irena had saved 2,500 lives, but she carried the weight of those lost parents for the rest of her life. She never considered herself a hero. She used to say, "I could have done more." For decades, the world didn't know Irena's story. Poland was under communist rule, and they suppressed stories of wartime heroes. Irena lived quietly, working as a nurse, never talking about what she'd done. Then in 1999, something amazing happened. 4 high school students in Kansas were doing a history project. They found a brief mention of Irena Sendler in an old magazine. It said she'd saved 2,500 children. The students thought it was a typo. Surely it meant 250. They started researching. They discovered Irena was not only real, but still alive, living in a nursing home in Poland. These teenagers wrote a play about her story. It went viral. Suddenly, the world knew about Irena Sendler. Irena was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. She didn't win, but she said she didn't need awards. She had something better, the knowledge that 2,500 people were alive because of her courage. She died in 2008 at age 98. At her funeral, hundreds of people came to pay their respects. Many of them were those children she'd saved, now grandparents themselves. Irena Sendler proved that one person can change the world, not with wealth or power, but with courage and compassion. She saw children dying and decided to act. And because of that decision, thousands of lives were saved. If Irena's story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Every week on Past Lives, we uncover incredible stories of ordinary people who did extraordinary things. People whose names should be known, whose stories deserve to be told.